Hey everyone, welcome to the NoDQ.com post 2016 draft discussion video. I am Aaron Rift, the owner of NoDQ.com. I am being joined by good old JM Jeff Meacham. How you doing tonight, Jeff?
You know, I think I'm going to stop wearing my company shirts when I do videos with you. Whether you're here in my house or whether you're at your own house, whenever we do videos together, you're never wearing the company shirts. I'm going to stop wearing my damn company shirts.
No, you got to wear the company shirts. I'm just different, you know. I wear whatever the hell I want to wear. And you're the company guy, so you got to wear what I tell you to wear.
I guess when you pay the bills, I got to do my thing. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, really, I should. Sometimes when we do videos together, you know, back in the day, I would wear the No DQ shirt or the No DQ in a video shirt. I need to just get some new shirts made. Hopefully that'll happen sooner than later.
Talk wrestling shirt. You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. But anyways, we're here to talk about the 2016 draft. We had the first live SmackDown. We had a total of not 60, but 59 picks, 30 that were televised, and then another 29 that were announced on the WWE Network. So let's go ahead and break this down. SmackDown Live started with Mick Foley, Stephanie McMahon on Raw, and Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan on SmackDown. All four of them were out there on the ramp, and they started off with the first pick for Raw. Raw got the first pick for whatever reason. Did they ever explain why Raw got the first pick?
They never actually explained it out. It's my understanding that if I were to explain this, I would say, well, SmackDown got the first pick for the first draft, so we should get the first pick this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been better if they had maybe like flipped a coin or something. It's just weird that SmackDown would, since WWE is trying to make SmackDown the primary show, you know, why not let SmackDown make the first pick, or at least have some sort of match to determine who gets to make the first pick. I don't know. Just Raw getting the first pick, I think, like you said in one of your recent videos, that SmackDown's already getting buried. That's what you said before this whole thing even went down. So I'm curious to see what you thought about this, but we'll dig into that in a moment here. Let's start off with the first Raw pick, which was, no surprise here, Seth Rollins. Were you surprised at all by this pick?
Not at all. You got to figure Stephanie McMahon is controlling Raw and Mick Foley is doing what she wishes to do with Monday Night Raw. They're going to pick the man. They're going to pick the first guy that Stephanie wants on her roster. Seth Rollins has been the authorities guy for almost 2 years now. Actually, 2 years. Actually, 2 years this month, I believe, is when he turned on the Shield, if not last month. So for me, Seth Rollins is not a surprise at all.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think you nailed it. Seth Rollins in the storyline would make sense to be Stephanie's first pick because he has been her guy for the past 2 years now. He's been the authorities guy. So no surprise there. And then, of course, Shane and Bryan countered with the WWE champion, Dean Ambrose, which also makes sense. You would think somebody would pick the WWE champion as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah, you definitely, and they basically did the same thing you and I did with Kevin and Sammy, is that one picked one, so one has to pick the other. Naturally, it has to work that way just to keep them apart, number one, and make sure that at least if your brand's guy is the champion, he's in a championship match tonight, you got to make sure you give yourself a 50-50 chance of retaining the championship.
Right, so that made sense. You have the two guys fighting for the WWE title in the SmackDown main event as the number 1 and number 2 picks. That was the right thing to do, definitely. Then we start getting a little weird here. The second Raw pick, and maybe you agree on this. I haven't gotten your opinion on it yet. The second Raw pick was Charlotte, the women's champion. Now, I think of everybody on the roster, Charlotte would not be at the top of the list, but she was the second Raw pick. And I guess the positive is that it is the women's champion, and it makes the women's title seem very important. The fact that Charlotte is the number 3 overall pick. So what did you think about this?
I thought it was a great move by Stephanie and Mick, honestly, or whoever you make that decision for real. Because honestly, nothing would make the women's division stronger than picking them 3rd overall, 2nd for Raw, unless they picked them 1 or 2. I mean, that made the women's division, the women's championship, look like it has been paramount, which, let's be honest here, ever since WrestleMania, when Charlotte, you know, became the first new champion, it's been the Charlotte, Natalya, Sasha show, and it really hasn't been as in the forefront as it was when Nikki Bella and Charlotte were competing for the Divas Championship. It's kind of taken the back seat. So for them to pick Charlotte number 3 overall and their second pick for Raw is huge for the division and huge for the title.
Yeah, so it was a positive in that aspect. It was a little bit interesting. It caught me off guard a little bit, but I do think it makes sense if you're really trying to elevate the women's division for Charlotte to be up at the top there, and she's the women's champion, of course. Next pick for SmackDown, their second pick was AJ Styles, which I totally agree with. I think that was definitely the right choice to pick AJ, and it really keeps him at the top in WWE as he was one of the top picks. I'm sure you agree on that one.
Yeah, if AJ Styles isn't your top 1, 2, or 3 pick on your own brand, then you're not doing this shit right. It's as simple as that. AJ Styles is arguably, with Bryan Danielson now retired and CM Punk now competing for UFC, AJ Styles is the best mainstream wrestler on this planet. He just is. And for him to be anything below top 3 or 4 for a brand is a disservice to him and his talent.
I totally agree. I think that was absolutely the right choice to put AJ there as the number 2 SmackDown pick. Now, Raw's third pick was from NXT. We had Finn Balor, which is a name that has been highly rumored. Finn Balor himself has been teasing it for the longest time. It seems like maybe 6 months now he's been teasing his main roster debut, and finally he is drafted to Raw. So what do you think about this with Finn Balor being the third Raw pick?
We've been teased with Finn Balor being on a main roster of WWE since Fergal Devitt became Finn Balor. Let's be honest. Finn Balor has been the top guy for NXT pretty much since he arrived in NXT, even though he wasn't champion for a good chunk of his early months of NXT. Once he beat Kevin Owens to the championship in Tokyo, he took NXT and NXT championship to the stratosphere, and he has been their guy. He, like, as corny as Nakamura sounded when he said it, Finn is an NXT icon, and for him to now finally be on what will probably be considered the A show is huge for him and huge for WWE.
Absolutely. So I'm glad he got that big moment. He's right up there at the top, and he even did a promo on the WWE Network saying he's going to prove that he should have been number 1. So I thought he did a good promo. Glad to see him on there. And at this point, Kevin Owens went on Twitter and said that this draft is already a joke, which I thought was funny. I thought for sure, we'll get to more of Kevin Owens in a minute. I thought for sure they were going to have Owens be picked last or something just because neither side likes him. I think that would have been an interesting storyline rather than just have him in the middle of the pack. I don't know. But we'll talk about Owens more in a minute here. Let's move on. The next pick, the fourth pick from Monday Night Raw, was Roman Reigns, who is about to return from his suspension. Your thoughts?
Honestly, people called me out when I posted my final because basically I took forever to put my draft picks up earlier this week because WWE took over making their damn rules straight. Once they straightened their rules out and posted their eligibility roster on WWE.com, I went and did my little pick. Made a mistake by putting Roman and Cena both on Tuesday night SmackDown. God, I'm so far behind the times. And people warned me right away, no way to put Roman and Cena on the same show. And I thought, well, it could happen because if Stephanie's running Monday Night Raw, she won't want to deal with Roman. But apparently Mick Foley talked her into it, storyline-wise. So it doesn't surprise me Roman is going to be on the flagship Juggernaut show because he is, other than Cena, their flagship Juggernaut. Whether he's suspended or not, he's still the guy that Vince put all his eggs in the basket for.
Yeah, so, no surprise there. We pretty much expected Reigns and Cena. By the way, Cena was the third SmackDown pick. Or was it fourth? No, it was third. It was Cena. The third SmackDown pick, and Roman Reigns and John Cena on separate brands. That was the original plan, that Roman Reigns would be the flagship of Raw, and Cena as the elder statesman, as Booker T referred to him as. He is going to be one of the flagships of SmackDown. So, that was not a surprise at all.
Yeah, so totally out of context, totally out of point here. Did Booker T just keep screwing up tonight on the draft show, or was it me? He kept saying the wrong thing every single time.
I'm not sure. I wasn't really paying too much attention to it. I'm not really a big fan of that new announcer they have. He did not really stand out to me at all. Everything else was just fine. I mean, the announcers were just there, I thought. I didn't really have any major problems with anybody in terms of the announcing.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. Anyways, let's move on here. The fifth pick for Monday Night Raw was Brock Lesnar, the guy who is currently in some hot water with UFC right now because of the USADA anti-doping violations that he potentially violated.
I find it funny that both guys that got pinged for drug violations are now both together in the same brand in the same night. They both got picked by Stephanie, who was supposed to be the PR leader of WWE, and now here she is. Well, here, let's put the two drug guys on my show.
Yeah. So no surprise about Brock's placement. I think maybe if this whole story did not go down, maybe he would have been a spot or two higher. Maybe he would have been a spot above Reigns. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I expected him to be somewhere in there, fourth or fifth pick on one of the brands. So yeah, it is what it is. I mean, honestly, I don't even see the point in drafting Brock since he only shows up every once in a while. But whatever, they drafted him to Raw. Big shock right there. And then the fourth pick for SmackDown.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge.
Oh wait, go ahead.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge shock to see him drafted so high, and like you said, he probably would have drafted higher if he hadn't been in so much hot water with the MMA world. But like you said, it is what it is.
Yeah, and speaking of Brock Lesnar, his opponent for SummerSlam, Randy Orton, was SmackDown's fourth pick. So we're gonna have our first big inter-promotional match at SummerSlam now. Brock Lesnar from Raw versus Randy Orton from SmackDown, and also this opens up the door for a possible John Cena versus Randy Orton feud again, since they're both on the same brand.
Yes, because we want to see that match again. Clearly, that's what we want to see on Tuesday nights and on pay-per-view is Randy Orton versus John Cena for the 9,065,000th time.
Yeah. Moving on here, the sixth pick for Raw was The New Day, which was actually, I'm almost embarrassed to say, was my number one draft pick. And I had the first pick. We did the coin toss. So what did we do? We did the rock, paper, scissors. And my first pick was New Day. At the time back in May when we did that video, New Day was the most entertaining part of Raw. I mean, they've kind of slipped a little bit in recent weeks. But, I mean, back in May, the thing I looked forward to the most when I tuned in to Raw or SmackDown was the New Day. So they were my number one pick. I think today I would have done it differently, but glad they were towards the top. I mean, as they should. One of the most entertaining acts in the company.
Well, let me ask you this, because you and your No DQ crew on the forum there are loyal TNA fans, TNA soldiers, if you will. Do you agree with the New Day and the Wyatts kind of cherry picking off the Hardys?
Oh, I really have no opinion on it. I just think if of all the things you're going to copy, why copy that?
Seriously, that was easily the worst thing in the wrestling business since Katie Vick. Easily.
So we'll get to that more later about the Wyatts and what's going on with them. But New Day came together, and they're set to break the record from London and Kendrick. They're going to break the WWE, that lineage of the WWE Tag Team Championship, not the old WWE Championship, the one the Demolition held for over a year. How long did Demolition hold the titles?
471 days, I think. I will check while we're going through the picks. Go ahead.
It was a really long time, and New Day I think would have to hold the titles until like November to break Demolition's record. Unfortunately, I do not see Demolition being mentioned anytime soon because of this whole lawsuit. I'm sure you've heard about it. You've read up on it, the lawsuit, but that's a whole other topic.
Yes.
Let's not get off topic here. Let's move on here. So at this point, we had 10 draft picks. Kevin Owens did not make the top 10. What do you think about that?
It doesn't surprise me. They wanted to give Owens an axe to grind. No pun intended with Demolition there. By the way, 478 days for Demolition. So you need a long way to go for that title. Owens not being picked early does not surprise me because, like I said, they have to give Owens a reason to bitch.
Right.
He whines.
Right. All right, so let's move on here. Raw's seventh pick was Sami Zayn, one of our favorites going back to PWG. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy he was one of the top picks overall. and he's going to be on Raw. So should be a fun reason to keep tuning into Monday nights.
Did you mention Bray Wyatt for SmackDown yet?
No.
Okay, sorry, I got an order here on my list. I apologize. Go ahead.
Well, no, that's actually the next pick here. Bray Wyatt was the pick for SmackDown.
Yeah, neither one of those surprises me as being in the top 10 for the brand. Sami Zayn has been a breath of fresh air the last year and a half with NXT and WWE. He's an unbelievable talent. We've seen him come up literally from the ground up, from the underground, if you will, and he's been unbelievable to watch grow as a wrestler and as a person. Because I talked to Sami not too long ago at a live event or whatever. He's the same humble generico that he ever was. He's great. Surprises me that he's not going to be on Monday Night Raw, but now that both shows are live, Bray Wyatt live is money. No matter what show he's on, as long as he's got a live mic in his hand, Bray Wyatt is guaranteed money for whoever he's competing for. So kudos to Shane and Brian for getting Bray Wyatt on their roster.
Yep, and then the 8th pick for Raw was Sasha Banks. So you have her added to the Raw roster, and the 6th pick for SmackDown was Becky Lynch. So Sasha and Becky are now on separate brands. Your thoughts on that?
Well, based on the way they seeded the other picks for SmackDown later, doesn't surprise me that Becky ended up where she ended up. Becky Lynch, she was a huge component of the Divas/Women's Revolution in the last year. She's been on fire like her red hair. No pun intended there, because I've got less hair than her, but mine's natural red. With Sasha, she needed to be on the same brand as Charlotte before SummerSlam, because if she's separate from Charlotte on SmackDown, then there's no program for her to be entered into going into Brooklyn. And that's bad news for the women's division, because the women's division needs a change before they're total on top. And Sasha is that change.
Yeah. And Chris Jericho was Raw's 9th pick, and I like that because we have Jericho and Sami Zayn on the same roster now, and I think that that's going to be a feud perhaps going into SummerSlam. Definitely, I like that with Jericho being on Raw. And what are your thoughts on that?
You said you weren't watching the draft special stuff on the network very much during the live SmackDown?
I was going back and forth. I was trying to keep track of everything.
Jericho on the Draft Center special was hilarious. He was totally just agreeing with Corey Graves and buttering him up and just talking nice to him and being nice to Lita. And then he just totally degraded Renee at every stretch. He was so funny and totally talking out of his ass, bullshitting, because he was saying, Stephanie's one of my favorite people. I've always liked her, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, this is the girl that you career on the first year and a half of your career against her. You're so full of it, Chris. And that's what makes Chris Jericho great. He's so full of his own crap that people buy it still. Yeah.
I'm definitely happy that Jericho's sticking around and still doing his thing. He's been very entertaining since he went heel. He's really freshened up his act a lot. And, the stuff he's done with AJ and Dean Ambrose, and now perhaps with Sami Zayn, should be some really good stuff. Moving on here, the 10th pick. Oh, you want to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, Jericho continues to be what he is. He's not the best, because there's a lot of the best, but he's definitely one of still the best in the world at what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 10th pick for Raw was Rusev, the United States champion, and SmackDown's 7th pick was The Miz. So now we have the U.S. champion on Raw and the IC champion on SmackDown. That definitely makes sense to have those two titles on separate shows, since they basically perform the same function. They're the mid-card titles.
Right. Well, not to spoil what we're going to talk about a little bit later on, but basically the guys that each of them is facing is on the opposite show.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing double title change on Sunday, and we'll talk about that when we do predictions for the pay-per-view. But I find it funny that the challenges are on separate shows.
Now
we'll see what happens.
That's interesting. Yeah, we'll talk more about that when we do predictions. 11th pick for Raw was finally Kevin Owens. I just, like I said earlier, I think it would have been better if they built this up over several weeks, where you had Owens just annoying the hell out of everyone to the point where nobody wants him on their show, and he's like literally the last guy picked. I think that would have been hilarious. Just having him in the middle, I don't know. I just have mixed feelings about it.
Well, you got to remember something. The last time we saw Kevin was, or as far as doing anything before Monday last night was Raw last week, where he had Stephanie taking his side and totally buttering him up and making sure that he got his way. So for me, Stephanie picking Owens at any point during the televised part of the draft was not a surprise.
Yeah. I just think, maybe it should have been done a little bit differently, but who knows. 8th pick for SmackDown. This is where it gets really weird for me, is Baron Corbin. Now, if Baron Corbin had been booked like a monster for the past 6 months, I would say, yeah, this makes sense. But he's been feuding with Dolph Ziggler on the pre-show for the past several months, and now all of a sudden they pick him over Cesaro and a bunch of other guys. I mean, does not make any sense whatsoever.
Well, that's where I disagree with you, boss man. No offense to Ray Traylor there. Here's my take on Baron Corbin. The fact is that SmackDown with Shane and Bryan at the helm was going to be about opportunity. It was going to be about heart. It was going to be about the underdogs, if you will, or the guys hadn't really given it a fair shake, given their just due. Baron Corbin got a huge jump out of the gate. He won the 100 Battle Royal at WrestleMania, and since then he has been literally lost in the shuffle with his Dolph Ziggler feud. For them to give him a huge early pick on SmackDown will definitely give him a re-kick in the ass.
Yeah, but if this was real in storyline, would you really pick Baron Corbin over Cesaro?
Over Cesaro, no. Over some of the guys that got picked after him, but not Cesaro.
Yeah, that's my.
Cesaro would have been one of my early picks.
I mean, if we're going by momentum and win-loss records and treating wrestling like it's real, in storyline and whatnot, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. If Baron Corbin was winning a ton of matches and was on fire, then I'd say put him in that spot. But whatever. Let's move on here. Raw's 12th pick was Enzo and Cass. No surprise there. Enzo and Cass, one of the hottest teams in WWE in many years, actually. And Enzo has just been tremendous, and Cass is doing well as well. And, I'm glad that they're not splitting up, because that would have been a huge mistake to split these guys up. Oh, Jeff, real quick, you got to tell your son, keep it down a little bit, just like I got to tell the cats not to fight with each other while we're recording.
He wasn't doing any noise at all, but okay.
I can hear him on my end.
He's not in the next room. Oh. Anyway, we'll move on from there. Yeah. Enzo and Cass are not a surprise that they were on the Raw roster, and the fact that they got picked on the televised portion of the draft, they are unbelievable. They are great talent. They've been a breath of, like I said about Sami Zayn, a breath of fresh air. They're awesome, and they've been arguably the funniest team in WWE history, or recent history, I should say. And they deserve their spot on the roster, whatever roster they end up on. I'm glad they end up on Raw. I'm surprised they separated them and Cena, but them and Cena is going to be a temporary thing after Sunday anyway. So.
Yeah. All right, here's an interesting development. The 13th pick for Raw, Anderson and Gallows, which means that the club is going to be no more after Sunday. They will be on separate brands. Now, Finn Balor is on Raw, so will we see a new club form? Will we see the Balor Club form, even though WWE recently let go of that trademark? That's definitely interesting. What do you think about this?
It legitimately surprised me. I didn't know about it until later on, because I had to step away from the live stream. I was watching a SmackDown in the draft center. I had to step away and eat dinner. But when I came back and saw the club had broken up, I was like, why would you do that? But at the same time, it leads opportunity, because now you got AJ, who has to go and try to beat up John Cena on his own. And you got Anderson and Gallows, who are probably going to have Finn Balor with them. Probably not. You never know how that's going to shake down. They probably want to keep Finn good guy for a little while, and all of a sudden just really throw a wrench in the works and go, oh, he's bad, he's with the club, oh my god, and do it that way. But it'll be interesting to see where they go with now that Anderson and Gallows are still on the same brand as the tag team titles. I expect them to be champions for the end of the year.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be a possibility. We'll get a New Day versus Club feud, which I was expecting, a month or two back, that would be the direction. So maybe we'll get that going into SummerSlam. Jeff,
Yeah,
I
I
can hear.
mean that.
Jeff, I can hear him again. Really
Hang on a
bad.
second. Sorry, guys. Dylan, you gotta keep your voice down, please.
All right. Anyways, I'll move on here. The cats were hissing at the beginning, so I got problems on my end too. That seems to be a regular occurrence on my videos with the cats fighting and trying to disrupt things and meowing. So
Yeah, see, my dog is quiet, and usually I tape when Dylan's not here, so I apologize to the crowd out there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so let's move forward here. SmackDown's 9th pick. This is a pretty big one from NXT, American Alpha. Definitely a big moment here for those guys.
And see, when I had SmackDown on my draft special with you, I picked American Alpha almost right away because they are arguably the hottest young tag team in WWE's family right now, and for them to be called up to a roster is so big for both Jason and Chad. I can't get enough of those guys. They are my favorite tag team in wrestling right now besides the Revival, but I like the fact that American Alpha's on SmackDown and the Revival is still the NXT Tag Team Champions. That way I can root for both teams.
Yeah, and that's another reason why maybe the club will win the titles, so that way you have a heel tag team, and then American Alpha can eventually challenge the club for the tag team titles.
Yeah, because you have to believe with tag teams and women on both shows, there's going to be some cross-mingling here going on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, so now I have the unfortunate duty to announce the 14th pick for Raw. Drum roll. The Big Show. The Big.
Which is a pick that your Raw got in the lottery, if I remember right.
Yeah, or Kane, or maybe both.
Got both.
Yeah, I did.
You got both when you had Raw. You know, they tried to play it up on the draft special and on TV with the locker room needs veteran leadership, and there's no bigger, literally veteran than the Big Show. But how much longer is this guy going to go? If this is the new era, how much longer is Big Show's been around in the WWE alone for 17 years?
Yeah, and he's never on television. I think the 4th of July episode was his first time on TV in like 6 months or some ridiculous number. It makes no sense from a storyline perspective.
Well, maybe they're going to do a former heel turns to face turns for his career's over again.
Yeah, maybe that'll happen. Who knows? SmackDown's 10th pick was Dolph Ziggler, so I guess he can continue his epic feud with Baron Corbin. We could see that on the next WWE pay-per-view pre-show.
This Sunday live.
Yeah, so not much to say about that. Dolph Ziggler, just the guy on the roster at this point. Raw's 15th pick was from NXT, the female Amazon, Nia Jax. It's Nia, right? I keep saying Nia, and everyone keeps saying I'm pronouncing it incorrectly.
Yes, it's Nia Jax, and I am so happy for Nia Jax that she got her call up to the main roster in such a early time in her NXT development, because she has been female wrestler on the NXT roster to not hold the championship. And that's huge for me because I like Alexa Bliss and I like Carmella, but definitely deserves it, and she deserves her spot on Raw. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see her be the female enforcer for Stephanie going forward.
Yeah. And Raw's 18th pick was the returning Neville. And another thing that I mentioned in recent videos was the idea of Neville feuding with Chris Jericho, and Jericho's on Raw. So that's another possible feud for Jericho, is to go up against Neville. And, I think that was cool for his return to be drafted to Raw.
Well, that's where they were going before Neville got hurt, was a feud with Chris Jericho. So they should definitely pick up on that soon.
Yeah, so we might see maybe that first, and then do Sami Zayn versus Jericho or something like that. SmackDown's 11th pick was Natalya, so I guess her and Becky Lynch can continue their feud on SmackDown. Raw's 17th pick was Cesaro. So finally Cesaro got drafted. He didn't seem too happy when he did his promo on the network. He was basically saying that, Raw should be about the performers and not the drama with the general manager and the commissioner. and he said he felt he would have done better on SmackDown. It almost seemed like a shoot promo from him. He didn't seem too thrilled about the outcome here.
Yeah, he seemed rather irked that he was not only drafted so late in his eyes, but the fact that, Raw is going to be much more dramatic with Stephanie and Mick trying to compete for attention, because we all know this little love story between the two, between the commissioner and the general manager, is not going to last very long, because Stephanie has a very evil and vindictive. So, Cyril's right. He's absolutely right. Whatever show he should have been on, he should be a higher pick. Like I said earlier, definitely above Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin is still a great pick for me, but Cesaro should definitely be a much higher pick, and he got shafted.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty frustrated with that. I feel bad for Cesaro. At least he made the top 30, I guess. I think it would have been worse if he didn't make the top 30. So we have the last two picks for the first 30. The 12th pick for SmackDown was Alberto Del Rio, and the 18th pick for Monday Night Raw was Sheamus. So your thoughts on these guys and what's in the future for them?
Well, before I go to that, let me just point out that we're picking on Cesaro's pick late in the draft. Says the guys who didn't pick him at all.
What was that? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true.
Neither one of us picked him. We got him out of the bucket.
I totally forgot about that. Holy crap. And here we are complaining.
Yeah, here we are bitching. It's like we didn't even pick him at all. We had to pick him out of the damn bucket. So how hypocritical are we?
Wow. That is crazy. I totally forgot about that. Oops.
Revelations. All right. Sheamus and Alberto. Not surprised they split them up, because there's nothing for them to do together, even feuding or whatever. The whole feud and story is played out with those two. And I like Alberto being on SmackDown with Shane and Bryan, because Alberto will try to pull his, better than you stuff with both of them, and they'll shoot him down flat and they'll make him work, which Alberto's arguably the best technical guy on the roster. That's an argument, don't get me wrong, but he's one of the best for sure. Sheamus, I've been over Sheamus ever since they gave him the world title over Bryan in 2012. So on Sheamus, whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, hopefully Sheamus gets a makeover or something. At this point, he's just a guy, really serves no purpose than to just be there as a body to fill up some TV time.
Yep.
Background here. All right, so before we get to the second batch of 30 or 29, I should say, we had the WWE title match. Really, the wrestling took a back seat to the draft picks. There were some matches on this SmackDown, but nothing too significant. We did have the WWE Championship match, which Dean Ambrose did win. He pinned Seth Rollins with the Dirty Deeds, and this was despite an attack by Seth Rollins before the match even began. So now, going into Sunday, we have the triple threat, Ambrose defending against two Raw guys, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. And I guess we'll talk more about that for our predictions. Will those two work together to make sure the title goes to Raw? Will there be some sort of screwy finish? Or will Ambrose win, and then there's a new title created on Raw? So, this is something we can talk about when we do our predictions.
Then I'll.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on here. After SmackDown ended, the draft continued on the WWE Network, and we'll go through this pretty quickly since a lot of these picks were insignificant. First round, we had Golden Truth going to Raw, Usos going to SmackDown, Titus O'Neil going to Raw, Kane going to SmackDown, Paige going to Raw, which means that Alberto Del Rio and Paige, a real-life couple, are going to be on separate brands now. So that was really the most part of this second half here, the fact that those two are going to be separate now. So your thoughts on those names? Anything significant you want to mention?
I find it funny. We were talking about Paige. This was the girl that they were building the division around. And now she's an afterthought on the network portion of the draft, number one. Number two, It doesn't surprise me that her and Alberta were on separate brands because let's face it, we've seen the trouble the trouble that they apparently got into the weekend of the pay-per-view, whatever it was in Vegas. So for WWE to go, let's keep these two apart on work days.
Yeah, who knows? I'm not even going to begin to speculate on that. I'm sure everyone's going to have their opinions and theories on what's going on and why WWE would separate them. But anyways, we'll move on.
What did surprise me, Aaron, hang on. What did surprise me was that Titus was not picked on TV. He was picked on this network.
That surprised you?
It did, because they've been so high on Titus for the last few months. And all of a sudden, and same with Darren. Did Darren get picked on TV or did he get picked on the network?
He got picked on the network. He's actually in this next batch of names
That's
here.
Right, he did. That's right, he did. I see it now. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the next batch was for Raw, Darren Young, SmackDown, Kalisto, and Raw countered with Sin Cara. Boy, oh boy, what a counter that was. For SmackDown, Naomi, and then Jack Swagger for Raw. And here's an interesting one, the Ascension for SmackDown.
Yeah, I think that particular round, it was pretty even because the Ascension is useless. And so is the new Sin Cara. And apparently, from what you reported on ODQ.com or your site reported, a little bit of a struggle there between Sin Cara and Mr. Gotch.
Yeah, I really doubt that had anything to do with this. I'm sure WWE had this all planned out well in advance, and they're not going to change it literally the day of the show. So it is what it is. I'm just surprised the Ascension getting picked before the Dudley Boys and Braun Strowman even. I mean, when's the last time the Ascension won a match on television?
Looks like they're on television, period, except for Monday night.
Yeah, exactly. So, part of me wondered if this second half was just done out of a hat. I really think WWE should have just done what we did with ours and had made the second 30 just chosen at random, with a lottery. I think that would have been better than just picking guys because it really feels like these guys were just drawn out of a hat at this point.
Except for the end.
Yeah, I mean, really makes no sense, but whatever. Next batch, we had Dudley Boys going to Raw, Zack Ryder going to SmackDown, Summer Rae going to Raw, Apollo Crews going to SmackDown, and then Mark Henry going to Raw. And here's an interesting one, Alexa Bliss going to SmackDown.
So, not to bark up the wrong tree here, because WWE isn't like me as it is, but how is Summer Rae from NXT picked and not Bayley? What the hell?
Well, the real reason is that NXT needs those top stars, and then there's the other reason people are speculating on that Bayley's going to be the mystery partner on Sunday, and that's how they're going to debut her. But still, yeah, this really makes no sense in the storyline. Why would Alexa Bliss be chosen over Bayley? I don't get it.
I am very high on Alexa. I think she's nice on the eyes, or easy on the eyes, and she's improved in the ring. But for her to be, if there's no other reason besides Bayley's going to surprise us all on Sunday, there is no reason Alexa Bliss should be above Bayley.
Yeah. Another reason why I think this should have just been done randomly this second half, but whatever. I mean, in the end, none of this really matters. Everything's just going to continue. The machine will go on. Everything will just go on business as usual. So, us picking this apart is only going to mean so much. I mean, it's really just for entertainment purposes, us breaking this down and, complaining,
Well, it's funny you mentioned the machine going on because it's been 5 years this week since CM Punk won the championship at Money in the Bank. Yeah. And he cut that promo in Vegas a few weeks before about the machine going on no matter what. And he's absolutely right. No matter what we say here on this show tonight, no matter what we say on any of our shows, on any parts of the channel, the machine will continue. The cogs will continue to turn because that's just the way Vince McMahon wants it.
Ratings are down. I mean, interest is down. Website traffic is down on my end. 5 years ago, CM Punk broke NoDQ.com. So, wrestling has definitely cooled off quite a bit. I'm not sure if this brand split's going to change anything, but, it's definitely cooled off a lot. And I'm hoping we'll see business pick up. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the writing that changes things. You know, you need a more compelling product and more compelling television shows before you can expect those numbers to go back up again.
Agreed.
All right, so we have another batch here. Braun Strowman to Raw, which means that the Wyatt family is going to be split up, with Bray Wyatt being on SmackDown. For SmackDown, we have Febreze. I should be saying Breeze Dango, but I like Febreze better. And then moving on here, Bo Dallas to Monday Night Raw. And here we go. Here's a big one. SmackDown gets Eva Marie. What do you think about this, Jeff?
I think life imitates art because Jeff Meacham SmackDown picked Eva Marie out of the bucket, and sure enough, Shane McMahon SmackDown gets Eva Marie as well. Again, another NXT girl picked above Bayley, which is bogus. Number one. Number two, Bo Dallas is because the initial thought on the network special was that Bo Dallas was picked, but neither was Slater or so there was a hint that we're going to be split up.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit of drama and suspense as we got to the end. And here's one that, you know, makes no sense, but whatever. I wasn't even sure if they were still around. The Shining Stars are going to Raw, even though the last time they were on television was Raw, and then they never appeared again.
Yeah.
And you wanted to say something about Shining Stars?
Not really, but yeah, go ahead.
let's just move forward. Nothing here to talk about. SmackDown got the Vaudevillains, which whatever. I mean, Vaudevillains are where they're at now, and I really don't see them rising up the ranks anytime soon. We had one more round here. This was the 11th and final round. Alicia Fox going to Raw. Eric Rowan going to SmackDown to join up with Bray Wyatt or do whatever he's going to do. Dana Brooke going to Raw to be with Charlotte, of course. And Mojo Rawley from NXT going to SmackDown. And then Curtis Axel going to Raw. And then Carmella going to SmackDown as the final pick, which meant that Heath Slater was not picked to a brand, despite the fact that there were 59 names and not 60. So that's it. That's it for the draft for now. I guess that there are a few names left that have not been drafted to a show, and a couple of guys on the injured list. No past stars coming back tonight on SmackDown are being announced for the draft. Maybe in the next couple of weeks we will see some of those guys return. I mean, I find it strange that there was all this talk about past stars coming back and nobody showed up on SmackDown. You would think somebody would have shown up on SmackDown just to create the atmosphere that SmackDown was a big deal again, and you have a big surprise return, you know, like Carlito or RVD or something, just to create some buzz for SmackDown. So, you know, that was a bit of a surprise. You know, overall, what did you think about this draft? Did you like it? Did it exceed your expectations, or were you expecting more?
Neither, honestly. It didn't meet expectations, but I really wasn't expecting. I mean, WWE in 2016 is not what WWF was in 2012 and 2002. It's not the same company anymore. It's not the same drama anymore. You don't have the two of the biggest names in wrestling history are fighting over the roster. You don't have 2004, arguably the two greatest non-WWF promoters in history, Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman, fighting over the roster. You have the McMahon family drama, which you've had for the last almost 20 years now, and you have a guy who WWE, you know, didn't want to, even though he can't wrestle, so they put him in a general manager role. And then you had a guy who, you know, he's gone, all of a sudden there he is again. And it's great to see Mick, don't get me wrong, but, you know, do we really need Mick Foley being an authority figure in 2016? No, we don't, number one. Now, as far as the rosters go, I think they're ended up being pretty even. SmackDown got a little bit of the short end of the stick in some respects, but then again, Raw gets some guys that the Raw's greatest flaw, I think, on the roster I look in front of me right now. The biggest flaw on the Raw roster is Primo and Epico, because what are they going to do with these guys now? They've totally botched their re-entry to WWE.
Yeah,
those guys are a train wreck, and then you've got the Big Show and Mark Henry, a couple other guys who are well past their prime.
Yeah. I think overall SmackDown was a good show, and most people on the NoDQ.com poll voted thumbs up for SmackDown. I think, like I said earlier, I would have liked to have seen a few surprise returns, a few guys from the past, maybe a few more of the bigger NXT stars getting drafted, like Samoa Joe or Nakamura or Austin Aries. On that note, it was a little bit of a disappointment, but overall, it was a fun show to watch. I was entertained. Did WWE do a good job overall with the draft? So far in the NoDQ.com poll, it's overwhelmingly no. It's over 60% votes for no. So a lot of people did not like how it was done. I think it could have been done better. I think that, like I said earlier, the second half should have just been a lottery where names were picked out of a hat, because essentially that's what it felt like. It felt like just a bunch of random names being picked, all the guys that were not picked for the main draft during SmackDown. And then which roster is better? Right now, Raw is winning by a fairly large margin, 68%. So, Raw is a 3-hour show, so obviously Raw is going to have more people. But I think it's fairly balanced. SmackDown definitely has some top-tier stars, from Dean Ambrose to John Cena to Randy Orton. There's a lot of top talent there and a lot of reasons to watch. So, overall, I think SmackDown did fine. And, I would give the brand split, SmackDown, the whole thing, I'd give it a solid B. I thought it was good. Could have been better, but it was still good.
You saying a B+ effort for a B+ show, or is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying it's a solid B. I'm not even going to say it's a B+. Just a solid.
I'm just messing with you, dude.
That's okay. All right, so that'll wrap it up for our thoughts on the brand split, and we will be back tomorrow for our pay-per-view predictions. Battleground is this Sunday. Should be a very interesting pay-per-view. You guys can follow Jeff at Twitter.com/_Jeff Meacham. Any other plugs you got before we sign off?
I do indeed, sir. Tomorrow I'm going to be joined by Greg Cherry on Coast to Coast. We're going to be taping that show. He'll be live in Oil City, Pennsylvania. I'll be here in the Studio B, if you will. And we're going to get his thoughts on the draft, as well as thoughts on current WWE and TNA TV. If he's watching TNA, Lord knows I wouldn't if I was him. And we'll see what Greg thinks about what happened tonight on SmackDown Live. Yeah,
so that should be on the No DQ channel, later this week, maybe Thursday or Friday. Look out for that. I'll have another edition of No DQ&A video coming up, and I'm sure Noah's going to have the scoop coming up with a big recap and predictions for the pay-per-view. Going to be a very busy week. It has been a busy week, and we got a lot more to come. So stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest. We will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Good night, everybody.